how excited and thrilled we are. So you could join us on this special webinar titled Flourish. It's part of a midday musing series on life and leadership. Over the next hour, we're going to be embarking on an inspiring journey together, diving deep into what it truly means to flourish. I want to start off by introducing our guest today. His name is Michael Obrokwa. Michael has been a seasoned leader, pastor, community builder with over 2 decades of experience, helping people and teams grow with purpose and resilience. He's a published author, founder of a publishing company, and brings rich expertise in leadership from his years at TD. At the heart of it all, Michael is passionate about inspiring focus, strength under pressure, and finishing strong. And personally, my family and I have known Mike for over a decade, and they are a wonderful family. And Michael is such a heartsy, helpful person, always ready to go the extra mile, always ready to help. And I am so thrilled, humbled, and happy that Michael, you could join us this morning and have this discussion with us. My dear friend, Dr. Pamela George, and I will be interviewing Michael and having this discussion. So over to you, Pam.
Hello, everyone. It is so encouraging to be with all of you. Thank you for making time. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the Midday Musings on Life and leadership, what that's about. Rita and I had started this podcast about, I think during COVID, because we were musing about life and leadership, and we wanted to invite some experts to the table to mull over leadership issues. How can we live strong and live the life that God is calling us to live? One of my passions is to unleash joy. I've written a book on how to have sparkle in your life, and I'm so excited because I've heard about Michael from Rita. Michael, I am so encouraged that you made time to join us. We're going to have a bunch of questions for you so we can get into your book and what God has been teaching you. So welcome.
Thank you. Excited. Let's do it.
Rita and I will take turns going back and forth asking you questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
So tell me, what inspired you to write Flourish? Was there a personal story or a defining moment? Because when somebody writes a book, there's something that God puts on your heart to tell the world. So can you share that with us?
Well, everyone online, it's great to have you. Rita, Palm, thank you for having me. Let me just say this. I was invited years ago and I said no, simply because I don't think I was ready. But I think that will give you insights into this book, Flourish. I'm a man with many insecurities. And so to write a book is a miracle. To now go and on somebody's show and talk to experts about my book was something I was really not ready to do. A little bit about why Flourish became a book. First and foremost, I got a conviction that it is God's vision for people, for me. As I mentioned about insecurities, I did not think I was flourishing. I did not think it was even possible that anyone, any stage, any age, any culture can flourish. I felt it was just for the few, the 1%. But as I started in this dark moment of insecurities and anxiety and feeling that I'm falling short, I decided to dig deeper. I decided to look at the scriptures. What is God's vision for people? Is it true that God really loves us? Because if he does, then I do believe there is more than the struggles. There is more than my past failures. There is more. There is a future. So that got me really excited to look into the scriptures. And what I found out was that we are actually in good company. When you feel that you struggle and when you feel life is painful, you are in good company because nothing grows without struggle. And I felt actually for God to do any great work in anyone, he is going to use exactly what they have. They don't have to become a new person. They don't have to be born at a certain age, a certain country, have certain abilities. What you have is good enough for God to use you to flourish, and it's been an incredible journey.
Wow, that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, because what I'm hearing is flourishing. Part of it is having God meet you where you're at. So before we can even dive into that, would you define flourish?
Yes. So I think flourish by definition, if you to look at Webster, it says something along the lines of being in your prime, where things are happening. But that will basically eliminate about 95% of us. And so to me, flourishing is becoming aware of the progress that you've made, becoming aware. Flourishing basically is taking the time to reflect. Gosh, so many stories are coming to mind. There was a time in boarding school, and I actually didn't know that I was dyslexic. I didn't know that I struggled with reading. I was timid and I was afraid. So as God will have it, I basically couldn't, I failed biology twice, too much reading. And I didn't understand. And I grew up in a time, in a place, in a country where if you couldn't read, they just whip you, right? As if all of a sudden that would solve the problem. But God designed a back door for me. And so I love numbers and sciences. And that's how I was able to make it through school. But there was a time in boarding school that I took food from the dining hall to the dormitory. You're not supposed to do that. A lot of people were doing it. For whatever reason, I was caught. My punishment was to write a letter and read it at the dining hall in front of maybe 400 or 500 students. And then on the table, and here's a guy who couldn't write it, but the fear of the moment, the stress of the moment was so overwhelming, I just couldn't read. And as teenagers, goodness, you can only imagine the laughter, the mockery. And so I look back and today, whether I'm preaching or speaking and I make mistakes and I'm like, oh my goodness, it should be perfect. No, I have to go back and remember I was the same guy who actually couldn't read, who was dyslexic. And I didn't know until I got married. And my wife is like, I think you have an issue. And I'm like, wait a second, since when did you become a doctor? It's supposed to be my wife, right? But flourishing is looking back to see the progress you've made, not the perfection that you've made. It's not where you're supposed to be in the future, but the progress you've made and believing that if God did this, then how much more today when you're more solid, more grounded. So hopefully that helps.
Wow. Thank you, Michael. Oh, wow. Just listening to that story kind of took me back in time. I remember those punishments, those whippings, and those embarrassing things that we had to do. We didn't do what we're supposed to do. But I really appreciate the humility in you looking back and sharing that with us so that we can relate. Because I know that things don't change automatically. We have to have a mindset. We have to cultivate that mindset for you to become what you were able to do now. I bet it took years of training and just working on yourself. So, which mindset would you say helped you personally to get you through those toughest days? Are you able to walk us through a short routine that supports? Because we all have mental health challenges, we build resilience. And
Yeah.
so, could you help us practically? What can I do if I need to develop resilience in my life?
Yeah, I think it starts with reflection. You have to become reflective. And the challenge today is that we don't take the time to think enough. Gosh, and you guys are brain experts here. I think we make about 35,000 decisions a day.
Right.
And wait a second, I don't remember making 35,000 decisions. Well, they are automated for the most part, right? And so you can go through life and life just happens to you. So I think the first thing for me is taking an active role in my own story, taking the time to reflect. Where am I at? Where am I going? Why this pain? What's going on? Why did I overreact? And I don't know. I don't want this to be, look, I'm a minister. When you start speaking, I think there is a box that people put you in. This guy has it all together. That's not the case. On a day to day, I am struggling. I got issues, right? So the mindset is take your time to reflect, take your time to rest, take your time to claim your space in life. And I think the more I take the time to do that, I realize that life is good. Life is great. As a minister, I get to talk to people in tough situations, whether it's visiting people in prison, whether people dying of cancer, people in just some unbelievable traumatic experiences. Take your time, slow down a little bit, slow down, own what you can own and what you cannot control. It's not yours. You are not meant to control. So I think just knowing the difference. What is me? What is God? And even in those moments, what is God using to teach me? If I can distinguish some of these, then I think I'm in a better place.
Thank you for sharing that, Michael. The educator part of me kind of jumped when you shared about your experience in school and being in a school setting where you didn't have the support. And as you know, our podcast is global. So we have people visiting from Canada and India and different parts of the world. And I know education is different in every city. And I really appreciate you changing the trajectory of the meaning that you took behind I can't read to be an author now that can put words into a piece of paper and that we can sit and read your story. So thank you so much for flourishing in that way. That is just so amazing. One of the things in your book that you mentioned is changing your perspective and how perspective is a cornerstone of flourishing. So, can you share a few perspective shifts that you had? I know you shared one about the whole rewriting the perspective of being dyslexic and discovering it in your marriage many years later. And how did you change that perspective on that? Because that whole experience when you shared of having to stand in front of 300 people and publicly show your weakness, that could be traumatizing. So
Yeah.
how did you change that?
I think part of it, the luxury of time, right? Knowing that I don't have to be defined by my past. I think that is so important. I don't have to be defined by my past. We were made to thrive. That's chapter 5 in the book. Really made, God designed us to thrive. And I think what has helped me change that perspective is that God has given me already the ability. I think sometimes we take people's lives and we try to copy paste, and that doesn't work. And a recent story that has been helpful is you started picking up running. COVID-19 came and the world shut down, and I'm a people person. I energize, I see people, I'm excited. Well, COVID, you couldn't do anything. So I picked up running, and I learned very quickly that to run, it has to be my pace. Gosh, I met people who've been running for 40 years. I met people who are just new like me, but it felt like they've been running for the past 10 years. And so once again, you can feel so small. You can feel like, where am I? And how am I going to run the first 5K? But my race, my pace, that means I need to go. And the moment I try to keep up with somebody, I'm telling you, if you want to flourish, you are going to live an incredible life. You will be exposed, you will encounter stories, and you'll be reminded to stay in your lane. I joined a group to run with. This group, they run 3 times a week. And I got there and I'm like, oh, I'm here. And we started running, and these guys were going 4 minutes a kilometer pace. And on a good day, I'm about 6 minutes a kilometer. And so in my pride, I'm trying to tag along, and I did the first one. I'm like, wow. And then the second, I couldn't keep up because it was not my race and it was not my pace. We got to a point that I had to basically quit, get Uber to drive me to where I left my car, and went home. That's what happened. So the mindset has been, God has put me on a path. I am not a PhD educator. I'm not Pam, and that's okay. But in my own life and in my own stage, God has given me enough to flourish. If I can only pay attention and focus, I will be able to actually do more than thriving. I will flourish. I will have an impact in this world. I think that has been an incredible journey to be able to shift that perspective versus I couldn't do this. What happened to me 100 years ago, and I would die with that same story.
Mike, I really appreciate you saying that because we all face constant stress. I feel like we juggle constant stress every single day of our life, and then it creates a mental chatter about things, about our work, about our finances, about our family, and then we believe them. And so I think, how do I get out of this? I like what you said about my race, my pace, because it's so easy to look at everybody else and feel less than. I know for me, I've struggled with it. When everyone else is doing well, I go, oh my gosh, they're doing so good. Oh, look at me. I guess that's me, but I don't know about others. I want to be able to train myself to get out of that. So, what do you think? What are some mental habits that we can break that block resilience? What would you say? The ones that silently we speak to ourselves. What would you help us? What do you think?
I appreciate that question because I've struggled with that a lot. I was born and raised in Ghana. My parents moved to Montreal, Canada. It's a French-speaking country. And languages, as I mentioned already, I was not strong. It was not a strong suit. And so I found myself in a country that is not even English. It's now French. And so it was easy at the time for me to actually question life. What am I doing here? Meanwhile, there are a million people in Ghana who will give an arm and a leg and an eye just to be in my shoes in Montreal. But what was killing my joy, what was keeping me in that box is the three C's. I was comparing, I was complaining, and I was condemning myself. We're comparing because, oh man, if I went to school here, if I was born here, and because that's not my situation, then I complain about everything else versus all the blessings that basically all the resources of this country and the sacrifice of my parents and all they did, the stories, what they did to be able to get here. And then you got this ungrateful guy just comparing, complaining, and condemning himself. Nothing. That's more stress. So if we can become aware that when we are comparing, we're complaining, and then in the end, we're condemning ourselves. That is not flourishing. That will actually squeeze the life out of you. And that was my experience in Montreal.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike. I think about what I'm learning from you right now is to flourish, we have to have intentional focus. Our focus needs to be on my race and my pace because it's going to be very different from somebody else's. And I appreciate you talking about comparison. Theodore Roosevelt, who was one of the presidents of the United States, said, comparison is a thief of joy. And so the scriptures say how Satan comes to kill, to is trying to steal and to destroy. And for us to flourish and live the life in our pace and our race, he tries to get our focus off to look at others and to make us feel less than. He's imprinted trauma imprints in our life through experiences. And I'm super grateful for you to be able to shift that perspective. So some of us may be living in a storm right now, and we basically cannot even hear the word flourish. So what is one practical, actionable step from Flourish that they can immediately kind of themselves in that storm because it doesn't feel like flourishing? So
Yeah, I think again, it may not feel like flourishing because we have a different perspective of flourishing. We have a different definition of flourishing, right? What I'm learning is one, it sounds simple. I did not grow up with it, but is this idea of listening to your body. I'm like, come again? You're in charge of my body. What do you mean listening to my body? My chiropractor goes, Mike, you just cannot beat up your life. It's not like a horse. You got to listen to your body. And so if I'm in a situation and life is tough and I feel stressed and overwhelmed, what is happening is I'm taking on load that I'm not supposed to. And loads, that load you experience in your bodies, I think you can pivot and tell us more about this. This is what the two of you studied. Our bodies are designed to protect us. He has that ability to say, okay, I know what Mike needs, and Mike is trying to burn the candle on both ends and in the middle. But can I pause and listen to myself? Body, why this neck pain? I find that to be helpful. But also, maybe I need to shrink the steps, not the vision, the steps. And here's what I mean. I am on a mission to do something. That may require extra skill set, extra, load, extra stress, extra responsibilities, and that's all good. But who said I need to learn to run a marathon in a year? A great idea, if I want to just post it on Instagram or YouTube, here's what I did in a year. And some people are doing it, but that's not my race and that's not my pace. And so maybe running a marathon in a year, for me, maybe 5 years. So shrink the step so that you will eventually, once you overcome, baby steps, right? And it's okay, take the time, listen to your body, reassess, and be like, okay, I wanted to save $100,000 in 2 years. It's not going to happen, right? It's the cost to even achieve that goal. So can I shrink the process, make it small, achievable, and be able to get the momentum, be able to pivot from one to the other. And I think that can be an immediate activity all of us can do. Why am I feeling stuck or overwhelmed and stressed and all of that? Maybe I need to scale back a little bit. Don't quit, but scale back.
Oh, I love that idea, Mike. It just gives me so much hope just even listening to it. I know that unconsciously, I think I've kind of followed that in the last few years, especially going through some health challenges. I found myself not able to do the things I was doing earlier, challenges, thinking, cognitive abilities, those things. And I began to feel the burden. But I like what you said, shrink the step. It's not like it's over. It's not like it's the end. It's just I'm making it my pace. I just love that. And I hope that the listeners are taking notes here, because I think if we can just personalize what Mike is saying here, just have it at your pace, it also gives you confidence, because then you see yourself growing, right? And one of the things you were talking about, I believe in your book, is changing challenges into opportunities, right? There's one thing that you talked about, shrinking your steps so you can keep up with it. But there's also another way you change your challenges into opportunities. Can you share an example how you reframed a difficulty into growth?
Yeah. When you're going through moments, you may actually not be aware. You cannot sit in your backyard and watch grass grow. You can see it, but it is growing, right? And so before you can actually be able to pivot from challenges into opportunities, you have to know that God is working. God is actively working in your life. There's oxygen in this room here right now, and I don't see it. I don't feel I can touch it, but it is here. So that's number one. So if you can know that God has already prepared you, then you want to believe that you have the prerequisite. Sometimes we're like, oh, I don't know, but you do have the prerequisite. Emily and I moved to Toronto from Montreal, and we felt we've landed our dream job. Guess what? Within 18 months, that dream job was gone, no longer available. And so, why me? Why God? Why couldn't you protect me from this? Didn't you see this coming? You can just stay in that box. But if you begin to pivot, and if you can go from why me to what now, then the world begins to open up. God begins to open opportunities. First of all, you begin to breathe a little bit lighter. And I think for me, that moment was remembering that, oh, wait a second, all those moments that I hated in Montreal, that I felt I was wasting away and life was just so horrible, guess what? I learned a new language. I speak French. And then I got a job. The prerequisites in those difficult moments, I got a job at a TD Bank, bilingual line. I stepped into the company. I was hired through an agency, so actually TD didn't hire me. They do that so they can cut you off if you can cut it. Day one, I felt this is what God wanted me to do. Loved it. Within a year or two, I was no longer at a call center. I was in a branch. I had an office as a financial advisor. Why? Because of all those moments, and not just crying and dream job and God, you took it away. What now? And going through my skill sets and being able to pivot from there. And that was one of the most incredible blessings of my life, being able to work with people, help people with their finances, help people dream. In the process, I learned how to value money. I learned how to use money. I learned how to leverage. It's been years, and I still engage in this same field, helping people. And I'm back to my dream job. And so it is possible. Where they don't remain in the past, figure out the prerequisites that you have, and see how what now can open opportunities for you.
Awesome. I think just hearing you say that, an idea how attitude matters, isn't it? And a good attitude, even though you struggled through life. And so many times, I think we underestimate the power of our attitude. If you have a good attitude, you will get through it. And it just feels like I'm the only one struggling and poor me, and how bad can it be? And so that then distracts us from having a good attitude. So I want to thank you for being so real and so specific and so concise. There's so many nuggets you have actually dropped for us along the way. If you could distill your book into one life principle for our listeners today to carry with them, even though you've given us a lot, what would it be?
Take the next step. And I've heard variations of this, take the next best step. But I don't know what best is, right? So for me, take the next step. That's how you flourish. You're already on a journey. It may be unfavorable, but don't remain in it. So take the next step. Little book here. Let me see here. April 27, 2022. Okay. The first, I run my first half marathon. And I wrote down 10 things that I should do before I quit. Okay. Because I'm all like, you're going to run and the excitement, you may not be able to run your race, your pace, and you may, you run out and you may get hurt and cramps. And I wrote down, number one, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. That was not my idea. I found it somewhere. I thought it was great. So I wrote it down. So I'm going to have to get used to being uncomfortable, but keep running. Count to 100. Brain expert says, that actually remove my mind from the fatigue and put it on the running, right? So mental gratitude. God, thank you for my lungs. I hear this is what takes you to Everest and brings you back, your legs and your lungs. And so gratitude. Dedicate the race to somebody every kilometer. Okay, this kilometer is this person, that person. And so being present in the process, all of those basically means take the next step. Walk to the next traffic light. I have many things written down here just to make sure that I finish the race. And so wherever you find yourself, you have the option to quit. You have the option to tent and camp on your misery or misfortune, or you can ask yourself, what is the next step? And it's been amazing.
Thank you, Michael. That is so amazing. I'm just going to share my notes, what my takeaways, my race, my pace. It reminds how we can make plans for our life, but God determines the steps. So making sure our next step is aligned with the plans God has already determined is something that I've taken away. Beware of comparison, complaining, and condemning. And I think about God sending Jesus into the world to kind of tell us how unique we are. His image is in us, and he does not condemn us. So when we listen to our body, like you told us, and if our body is speaking anxiety or worry, learning to take that to Jesus, who sat with the woman and said, I do not condemn you. I'm with you. And I feel overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. But he was able to speak to the Father. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing your heart. I know that I'm going to take back with me all the things that I learned today, and I'm going to reflect. The first thing Mike said was reflect. Nothing happens without reflection. We take time. So please take advantage of that. Pam and I, both coaches, we work on brain health. And if any of you are interested to know more about it, you could always get in touch with us. And with all of that, I want to end our session and thank everyone once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.